One is up. I was literally about to say recording in progress, so that's perfect. So thank you all so much for jumping in here. Our goal is to, of course, be efficient with your time. This lunch and learn will last for an hour. So we will be sure to make sure that everything is running smoothly for you. But before we get started into the meat of the presentation, we wanted to take the time to give a little bit of an overview about South Florida Tech Hub, so that for those of you that are new and are just hearing about the organization, you can see some of the other things that we offer as well. So our main mission is to promote and build and continue to build upon the vibrant tech community in South Florida. And we do that in a variety of ways. So for me, I specifically focus on talent and policy. And with that, we have different subcommittees focused on K through 12 education, boot camps, and higher ed. So that combination of things helps us have a short-term and a long-term strategy to fill that talent pipeline for how much tech is growing and the job needs in South Florida that's not slowing down anytime soon. So we're thankful that you're here today. Also, too, really concurrently with that concept is the brand, to show to people in South Florida, but also externally as well, how many incredible opportunities are here in South Florida to promote our whole community and to let people know that. Our community too, even though it's expanding naturally, we want to help support the expansion of the community as well, and the existing community, to show different relationships, make those connections, and really support along those ways. And you'll see in a minute that we have over 250 member organizations, but we also like to provide additional support specifically to startups to help them as they're going throughout their process and journey. So we do have tech hub committees, as I mentioned. So this is a great way, if you are an individual member or if your company's a member, to jump in and get involved if any of these things strike your interest. And we also do have peer groups as well. And so these are more centered around conversations, diving deeper into different topics as well. So it's a really great way to entrench yourself into the community, meet new people, and learn a lot along the way. Some of our current members are, as you can see here, range from Amazon to Modernizing Medicine, Carrier Office Depot, FPL, UKG, all the way down to the startup level, as I mentioned. So we're really proud of that fact. It enables us to build bridges between different levels of companies. So we're thankful for that. If your company is not currently a member, we can certainly provide that information as well. So to jump right in, we are thrilled today to have three incredibly strong speakers that can highlight the negotiation aspect of different things, from a salary perspective, from benefits, and also just information that will hopefully equip you for future conversations with employers, with clients, and really enable you to get that start. So without further ado, I will let each of the panelists introduce themselves, and we're going to go ahead and start with Dari.
Hi, Dari Dolis here, founder of Sync Tech, Synchronized Technology. I am an engineer by trade, and I am an entrepreneur by birth, or by hustle, like I like to call it. I've launched multiple modest and failures failed ventures. I've also, on the engineering side, I have a very long career, over like almost close to 2 decades now, negotiating, hiring people, getting to know people, on both sides of the aisle. Yeah, I'm happy to be on this panel with this rock stars, and to hopefully impart some knowledge that can be used when you negotiate salary.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yep, go jump right in, Sevi. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. You hear me okay, right? Yes. Hi, everyone. I am Steffi. I am the founder of Secrets of a Hiring Manager, and I have been in career coaching and staffing for the last almost 17 years now. And I have helped thousands of professionals find work. My passion is technology, and I have helped thousands during the last recession when nobody was hiring. I was known for helping professionals find technology jobs. And I worked for a Microsoft partner for 12 years. I was laid off during the pandemic, and I used that opportunity to really work on my passion project. And then I had a dream of working in Silicon Valley, and I moved to California. And now I work with employers in Silicon Valley, helping them find top talent in IT. And I'm really, really passionate about all things technology. One of the really key things for me is knowing your worth and negotiating your salary. After, during the pandemic, when I started to see the opportunities that were available, I actually gave myself a $65,000 raise. It's something that I'm really, really proud of, and I'm excited to show you some tips and tricks.
Fantastic. And last but certainly not least, we have Eric.
Hi, everybody. Eric Baumingen. I've been in staffing for 7 years. I've negotiated on both sides for clients and for people, and have really enjoyed everything that I've learned, especially in the past 3 years, getting into technology, being a part of Tech Hub, and really seeing the community grow. It's definitely been one of the craziest roller coasters, especially in the past 2 years with everything within the pandemic and seeing the big changes that have happened. And it definitely allows you to search for more jobs, better value yourself, and find what really works for you. So I think there's been a lot of silver linings in the past few, years that have really opened up, and definitely look forward to speaking with everybody about it.
Wonderful. We are really excited for today, and also grateful for you all taking the time on your Friday afternoon to spend with us. As a preview to the remainder of the presentation, what we're going to do is jump right into the questions that we have for the panelists, but we're also going to be sure to reserve time at the end of the conversation for the audience to be able to ask different questions, but along the way, so that you don't forget, or if you have things that you'd like to address and go into and ask the panelists as we go through questions, feel free to enter them into the chat. We have Isabel and also Nikki that will be helping us from the Tech Hub side of things, so we are also very appreciative of them. So I will go ahead and jump right into the exciting meat of the conversation so that we can learn from all three panelists. So the first one is, negotiating salaries can be intimidating. What are the best tips that you can give to those that are going through the process? So this one's just a good overview to get us started. So if we want to start, Dari, if you want to start, and then we can go down the list. I think this is a good one that we can all touch on.
Yes, negotiating salary can be intimidating. It absolutely is. Best tips? Look, the way I see it is shoot is shoot. And what I mean by that is you lose 100% of the shot that you didn't take, right? It's always good to just ask. What's the worst that can happen? They say no. Like, make sure that your ask is reasonable, all right? So people often say, I get this offer, and if I do ask for anything, then they might rescind it, right? You need first, I guess, you need to start understanding sort of where you're coming from financially. Is this a job that you absolutely need? Is like a do or die? And I think often people would tell you that you always have to make a counter offer. Well, I don't know if that's always true, right? If Google comes today and offer me like $2 million, I mean, am I gonna say, Google, can you give me 2.5? Right? It's okay, you could take it, right? I guess the point I'm trying to make here, negotiating can be intimidating, but you should always start by knowing your worth. So never ask for something. You have to have like this number that is the lowest possible number that you're willing to take that makes you comfortable. And I'm sure Eric and Steffi probably speak to this. Every time I speak to a recruiter and they say, what's your range? I go like, I want something from 120 to 150. I always get 120. I want 85 to like 190, 85 to 105, I get 85, right? I usually fall closer to the bottom. And over time, I've realized that, I should always ask for something that I'm comfortable with, that I don't want to go under, right? So I guess my 2 tips here really is you lose nothing to ask. And there is much more than just salary, right? And second, be comfortable with the thing that you're asking, right? Knowing your worth.
Love that. Love that. I agree. I also think it's really, really important before you even start interviewing, you have to do research. And when I say research, external and internal research, right? So data is really important. The more data you have, the more prepared you're going to be. So do your research, find out what the market's paying. If you're up for an interview with somebody, look up their competitors. What are their competitors offering? And make sure you have those key data points. I have a few websites I can type in the chat, and I can also, if you DM me on LinkedIn or Instagram, I could send you more resources, but make sure you go on these websites and look to see what is the range, and always aim for higher than you really want, so that you're not disappointed, right? Because just as you just said, Derry. So if the role is, if you say I'm looking between 120 to 150, they're going to offer you the 120. So I completely agree, go higher. But data is so important. Do your research and focus on, what the competitors are offering. Everybody wants to beat their competitor, right? So that's my tip.
I mean, I agree with both of you. I would say that within the search, it starts before anything. So understanding your own current situation, defining your search, understanding what you really want, for not everybody's not just about money, it could be remote, work-life balance, somebody may want to work for a smaller company instead of a bigger company. So it really starts with understanding your current situation, defining your search, and then creating leverage within what you're searching for. So, trying to get your name out into multiple companies, because you may not have leverage with where you're currently at, but you can create leverage through pinning different companies against each other and being forthcoming with information, but, playing your cards right. When you're telling them, oh, I have these interviews lined up with this other company, and letting them know where to expect to pin them on, like, you're not going to take a company that's offering 90,000 and another one's offering 110 when everything else is eye to eye. So really just trying to understand why you're getting there and creating as much leverage is a big factor where you'll have the control in those conversations.
Absolutely. Really, really wonderful tips there.
And Ashton, I would add also, before you even start talking salary, make a list of everything you bring to the table and start to identify how much are your hard skills and your soft skills worth.
I love that. I think that's also so important too, to show, to your point, also what experience you bring to the table as well. If you have 5, if they're asking 2 to 3 years and then you have more than 5, that's a selling point as well. So I think you hit that on the head. Absolutely. All right, for the second question, can you recall an individual that you interviewed that ultimately changed your mind to give a higher salary to based on their negotiation skills? Were they effective, and what were kind of those metrics that really convinced you to go and accept their negotiation?
I could take that. So actually, this just happened recently. So there was a candidate who met all of the expectations. She went through a really, really long process, interviewed with the entire company, with the panel, and she just blew everybody away. And she was ready to sign. And she called me up and said, I don't know if I'm allowed to say the company, but Instacart offered her a role, and she came back and said, they're offering me something that I cannot pass up. And not only was it salary, but it was equity, it was remote work, and it was way out of the budget that we were looking to pay. Okay. And so I went back to the hiring manager and I presented, this was a data point, this is what this company's offering. This is what we're offering. This is way out of our budget. But if we want to keep this candidate, basically she came to me and said, this is what I'm being offered. And so I was able to go back to the hiring manager. And again, nobody wants to lose to their competition, right? So I think it's important to remember that when you're talking to recruiters, you're going to get the question a lot, are you interviewing anywhere else? Never say no. Make sure you are interviewing. You don't want to lie, but make sure that you're interviewing at other places and use that as leverage and talk to them about what you're being offered by those other companies and use that as leverage, because that's going to be your best selling point. Because again, nobody wants to lose to their competition.
Amazing.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% within that. And that's definitely like her utilizing the leverage of getting an offer that was just something that's wouldn't be allowing her to say, hey, I'm not going with you. Another thing is I've seen people try to negotiate and they do the wrong thing and they talk themselves out of a position because they're asking for too much. So you definitely want to balance both sides of it. But I mean, everything's negotiable. So to not have these conversations, you're hurting yourself on both sides, because it's going to allow you to see what a company truly like how they value you. And you're setting up your first day, your 90-day, your year, your 5-year within these first steps of your career, or first steps within that job. And that's really where taking everything you can, but putting yourself in the best position to succeed.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think the thing that I value most in interviews is authenticity, right? Usually people just come out to be genuine. Most of the interviews I've done are highly technical, and it's hard to, well, I guess you could fake some of it, but it's usually like there's a big emphasis putting on how much you know on the technicality, and skills you can train attitude. I usually go there. I'm like, so is this person a person that I want to work with? Now, I am the kind of person, when I'm hiring, I want to pay you what you're worth, right? Even if that's much more money. I think I'm part of this new breed of CEO that just believe that if you're working, even if you're a high school student, I feel like if you're working for me for 40 hours, you should be getting paid not $15 an hour, right? I'm not trying to take advantage of you. And also, when I'm like a hiring manager, I usually would advise people, sometimes against company policy. This is sort of what we're looking at. Like, you can't fetch a higher price, right? And you should, like, to the point that would be made before, knowing your worth, knowing the competition, right? Oftentimes, companies tell you, you have to make the offer. You have to say something else that you want for me to be able to say, okay. I've had some hiring peers managers that says, like, I'm waiting for that person to say something so I can tell, like, yes, or you're gonna like rebuttal, or you're gonna give me a counter offer so I can say yes, kind of things like this. But I usually go there, right? If I find that the candidate is sort of strong and someone that I truly want, I would probably give them the best that I can offer, right? And sort of go there.
I love that.
And one thing I will say is, like, soft skills really do shine through on that too, because getting the right person is sometimes more important than getting the person that can do everything for you. So when somebody comes with the right attitude, that's a whole nother value point that can really be highlighted in negotiation.
So true. And thank you for bringing that up, because the soft skills is absolutely something that we hear from members and people in the industry all the time. So you absolutely nailed that. For the third question, what are some tough questions that a person interviewing should prepare for when they're negotiating their salaries?
I want to grab this one because there isn't one, in my opinion. They have it is a candidate driven market. You have so much leverage. There's so many companies that need a good person to work for them, that really it's having confidence going into what you're asking for. So it's more of like looking past that person in the mirror that's knocking your skills down or your availability to get what you're looking for. I mean, I'm sure there is true tough questions that people will put out in front of you, but I really feel that it's a confidence aspect of putting yourself in a position that you know you can do, and have faith in yourself.
I love that, Eric. I agree. You know your worth, and ask for what you want. But I would say a tough question, and I want to share this because this is a Florida group. So I will share one thing that I'm noticing now that I'm working in the West Coast. So in Florida, you are allowed to ask a candidate what their salary history is, right? So this is a tough question. Everybody gets tied up here. So I remember as a recruiter, I was able to ask, so what were you making at your last role and what are you making now? And how do you negotiate, right? If the role is paying 180 and you're making 80K, how do you go from there, right? So my recommendation here is always deal with the concern behind the question. Why are they asking you this question? Because they want to be able to negotiate with you. They want to know what you're making, right? So what I would do is if they ask you, how much are you making now? Or how much were you making before? Say, well, what I'm looking for is X, Y. This is what I'm looking for. And based on the roles that I'm being considered for, always use those roles that you are being considered for. These are the current opportunities that I'm being considered for. This is what I'm being offered. And nobody can really say anything about that. So I would, again, leverage the offers that you have and, tell them what you're looking for. This is what I'm looking for. And of course, always go a little bit higher than what you want. But I did want to bring up that in Florida, you may be asked that. So if you're, and I think it's different now because now there's so many remote opportunities. So employers have to be really careful with that question because you don't want to break any laws. But if you're interviewing for a local Florida company, they may get away with it and they may be able to ask you that. So beware of that question and just be, put on your politician hat and go around the question, right? So don't answer that question. Tell them what you're looking for.
Very good gems there. I think the problem goes way deeper than this, right? And the toughest questions are, like Steffi mentioned, about salary. We are wired as kids to not talk about money. Like money is something that's taboo. It's something I'm changing in my own household. My kids, we talk about money all the time. You shouldn't be uncomfortable. Like it's a way of life, right? So when someone does ask you, and I can use sort of an example. I remember I was working at Ultimate Software, and the exec team says that we had reached parity. Everybody's being paid sort of equally among gender, among races. And I'm like, okay, guys, let's put our salaries on the table. The execs were saying, this is how much they pay everybody. So here's how much I'm getting paid, how much you're getting paid. The only way that we'll know for sure is just put it on the table. Nobody except for me would say how much they're getting paid, right? And I could not understand then why this was happening. But later I made research into this. Like, why can't people say how much they're getting paid? It's like someone asking you, how much are you worth? Right? That's what people equate it to. And that's a hard question to ask someone. To what Steffi was saying earlier, and to what Eric was saying, confidence. If you know your worth, if you know the market value, if you know the average that they're making, and you're not average, you have to make above that, right? You know the skill that you're bringing, you know the problem you're going to be solving. And in addition, you can speak to that and ask for that. Like, look, this is what I'm bringing to the table, right? So in knowing that number, it's true. I recently found out that Florida, you can ask people how much you are getting paid. I would say that, I think Steffi mentioned this, understand the kind of company that's asking this. Why is it that you're trying to underpay me? Why is it that you're trying to nickel and dime me, right? Is that a company that you want to work for, right? The intent with the question has to account for so much. But I guess the here, no matter what the question is, understand that you're coming from, like you're wired to be uncomfortable talking about money. And second, bring as much confidence with data as you possibly can to make your ask be sort of stronger.
Sorry, I love your talk about what you're making with your colleagues, with your friend, because like it is that cliche of, oh, don't ask that question, don't tell that, and it hurts everyone on so many levels. And with what Steph was saying, like, well, I'm also looking because I'm undervalued and underpaid. Like you can throw those reasons as to why you're on the market right now to get out there. And if somebody's interviewing you, you can try to figure out where they've started and where they've grown to as well. Well, where did you start and where are you now? And it might flip the switch on them and terrify them, because then they have to answer a really tough question that you just threw back their way, and they could have been there 5 years, and you're seeing what growth can look like at that company for the next 5 years.
Amazing. Absolutely. Okay, so this next one here, I am unable to, because of my screen sharing. Nikki or anyone, do you care to read this one out? Because I can only see the first line here.
Sure, Ashton. So number 4, I have, how should a person applying for a job determine what salary they should ask for and what the top range is in the interview process?
And I know you guys have kind of touched on this, a little bit before, and Steffi provided that, those different types of resources in the chat as well. But any of the panelists, do you want to kind of touch on this a little bit more or dive deeper? And we'll open it up to conversation.
Steffi crushed it with data points. But like another thing is you can do self data where you go to the company, see somebody with the same title, add them on LinkedIn and ask them, hey, I'm applying for this job. Where are you at? Like reaching out to some of the people that are working at these companies already, add to your network, and then also get an insider's view that's not part of the hiring process.
Eric, I'll add to this briefly. There is this app called Blind. I don't know if you guys heard about it or if you're on it. It's like a social media for people, especially in the tech world. People that go to Fing, and Fing is big tech companies, Facebook, Apple, Netflix, and that sort, where they just anonymously share the salaries and they help you negotiate to offers. You get an offer, you go there. I've gotten so much insight just into salaries in general. People say, I get this offer, and they would tell you, oh, that's a bullshit offer, right? You should ask for this, right? They would tell you, this is how much people are actually getting paid at your level, right? And that's what you should be asking for geographically and all that. So I find it to be, if you can like sort of filter out all the noise that's happening there, because it's social media-ish, and you can get to the meat of salary and negotiation is not just about salary, right? What you can ask for, equity, time off, kind of things like this. You can get away with so much, or sign-on bonuses, or relocation fees, and there's all these things that once you're in the tech world and you're sort of good, it gives you a really good idea what you should be looking at.
Wonderful. All right, so number 5, what are some other, hey, perfect segue, Dari. I don't know if you intended to do this, but this was great. So what are some of the other non-salary ways that a person can negotiate, such as stock options, a signing bonus, or other benefits? And also in looking in the chat as well, Mark conveniently put in, which is very appropriate for this conversation, the ability to negotiate title. So something as important as salary, and he mentioned getting a manager position, director, or VP can be helpful in your next role. So this, I think, can be incorporated into that conversation as well, if you guys would like to touch on that too.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think not only, always, especially in tech, and if you're interviewing for a startup, it is so important, more than your salary, that you ask for equity. Usually if you're joining a startup, they'll offer you equity, but look at those shares. Take a look at the shares and really talk to the recruiter that's walking you through. Have them really walk you through, ask questions about the shares. How many shares are you getting? Try to get as many shares as you can, because at the end of the day, that equity means more than your salary long-term, right? So you're going to invest all those years into that company. You want something that's going to pay off in the long run, right? That's worth a lot more than the salary that you're negotiating. And sign-on bonus, I would always ask for a sign-on bonus, no matter what. Even if the answer is no, I mean, it's worth a try. Ask for it anyways. You don't have it anyway, so ask for it. Another benefit, especially now with all the remote opportunities, I've seen a lot of candidates who the hiring manager has said specifically, this role is hybrid, meaning you have to come in a couple days a week, or fully remote. And the candidate has actually, again, blown away the interview. They've done a great job. And, they accepted a lower salary and we're able to say, you know what, okay, I'll take, you know, $5,000 less, but only if I could work remote. And, you know, by then the hiring manager sees their value and is like, okay, you know what, let them work remote. So if, you know, work-life balance is important to you, negotiate that, you know, talk about that. Maybe even the hours, if you need flexibility, right? So you need to be able to leave the office whenever you can to pick up your kids, negotiate that up front. I'm complete.
No, I like, you guys are just crushing it, which is awesome, and I fully agree. But once again, it's the beginning of the process that leads to how your deal is going to work out in the end. So defining the things that are really important to you on the front end. So it's not like, oh, by the way, I want a $10,000 signing bonus because you didn't think to ask for one, and now you're looking at a job that's offering, you know, like, putting those things out there. You can ask for, you know, a Disney membership if you want, or for you to pay for my internet, or everything is negotiable. You could say, I want a 24-foot teddy bear sent to my house on day one. And, you know, like, you don't know if you're going to get it. I've been watching a lot of different people where it's like, you know, to hone your negotiation skills, go to, you know, a local coffee shop and ask for 10% off. Like, ask that tough question that you would never ask in your normal day-to-day and see if you get a result. And worst case scenario, you're used to asking a tough question, because not everybody has to deal with that. And you're going to see that this is an employee-driven market right now. There's not enough people, and just push for yourself, because no one else, you got to be your own best resource. Like, a recruiter will help you out along the way, but they're gonna, you know, they're still doing their job. Your job is to look out for number one when it comes to this.
Eric, let's not forget pet insurance. You have to ask for pet insurance, right?
Yeah, you know, that's true. That, like, those are the things that matter. Like, hey, I want to be able to walk my dog on Tuesday. Like, if you're going to have me work time and a half, I want like 2.5 for anything over 40. You know, like, these are the things that when you value your time and you value yourself and you know that you're worth it, you know, if you have no leverage and you just need a job and, you know, the world's crumbling, like, you're going to take, you know, what is different. Those Facebook memes of like, oh, bring this car to one person, bring it to the next. And, you know, I'll give you $5. I'll get, you know, it's priceless and it's going in a museum, or, you know, how you have to value yourself.
That's right. Sorry, were you going to say something, Steffi?
I was saying, you're giving me so many great ideas now. My wheels are spinning. You know, also like memberships, right? Your Tech Hub membership, ask them to pay for your membership, or
Conferences.
coaching, right?
Gyms, conferences, you don't get what you don't ask for. And that's in everything. It's not just a negotiating, you know, it's a way to live your life. You know, like, you're not going to get ahead if you're fine with people passing you.
That's right. I think it's important. And I think the theme is still the same. You lose 100% of what you don't ask. And to what you were saying earlier, Eric, you don't go to the grocery when you're hungry, right? It's hard. You end up buying the whole thing. It's better to negotiate in a position of strength. And it's easier also to say no. Look, in my career, the amount of time I've said no and then got a better offer, like, every time, sometimes I'm just like, let me think about it. Just having, not even saying no. I'm like, oh, I was thinking higher. Give me a day to think about it. 12 hours later, highest offer. I was like, still give me a little bit of time. Another 12 hours later, here's what we have. That's the last we can do. I'm like, oh, you could have started there. Right? Just sweat them out just a little bit. It could go a very long way.
Yep. Agreed.
Wonderful. And just thinking about some of the things that you all mentioned as well, insurance is a big one. So do they offer long-term insurance, you know, short-term? And then one other thing that I've heard as well, which was interesting to me when I first heard it, was severance. So that, I think, can be another one that can be discussed ahead of time so that you have it in your contract, that you have those types of things as well. But all really excellent points. I know that the teddy bear is a topic of conversation now in the chat. So someone will have to report back if they ask for.
If anybody gets it, I will be blown away. But
one last point I want to make. One thing I was able to negotiate, I've been able to negotiate, is performance targets. But when I hit if I do certain things, then especially in startups, I can get X amount of equity given that I'm like exceeding or meeting expectation, right? I'll take a little bit less money now, but 6 months or whatever, when the performance cycle comes to be, if I exceed expectation, then I get X amount of stocks, or I get this because I performed at a high level. So that you sort of tie in your well-being with you doing well at the company, which can also indicate very strongly that I'm about business, right? I'm here to help and do something.
Absolutely.
And growth, like, factoring in promotions and things along those lines and understanding those timelines. Like, if you can set what your performance indicators are in the beginning, you're not waiting a year. And there's companies that are just based off of tenure compared to performance, and understanding those as well is a big factor.
Definitely. And there's some great conversation too in the chat that you guys have been proactively answering, but we'll be sure to monitor that if it doesn't get touched on too for question and answer. Okay, and again, we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but this might trigger some other things, I think, just from the conversation and sharing of ideas. We're all kind of feeding off of each other, which is always a plus. But the sixth question here is, what are some questions that the individual negotiating can ask the potential employer that is specifically interviewing them? And I know that you guys have touched on several just by conversation, but if there are others that come to mind, definitely feel free to use this time to touch on those.
This is my favorite question because, so I want you to think of something. Everybody will pay anything, right? I am willing to pay anything for somebody to fix my problems, right? So I could go to the store right now and purchase something to fix my problem right away. I will pay anything, right? So this is your opportunity when you start to ask questions. Make sure you always ask questions. This is where you're going to identify pain points, right? So you're going to ask questions to the hiring manager about what's the number one priority you're trying to achieve right now? What is the number one problem you're having? What can I help you solve right now? Okay, so I want you to think of yourself as a partner, not as remember, and this is also reminding the employer that you're interviewing them as well. Okay, so remember, you're interviewing them. It's a candidate's market, like Eric said. Okay, so they're not just interviewing you. So what can I help you solve right now? Think of yourself as a partner, as a consultant. That's what's going to separate you from candidates that are applying as just a candidate interviewing, right? So what can I help you solve right now? Because again, if you can, and really process that, and then, start to talk to them about and give them ideas on how you could help them solve whatever it is that their number one issue is. But if you can pinpoint that, really identify what the pain point is and show them that you can solve their problem right now. All they need to do is hire you. You can solve their problem right now. Start to talk about ideas, because it will start to make them think, wow, if they're sharing all of these ideas now, imagine what I could get if I actually pay them for their ideas. So if you could just think of yourself again as a consultant, as a partner, instead of a candidate just interviewing. I'm complete.
I'm going to say the biggest thing that you can ask for questions are to find out what's wrong with the company, and why the position's over, what is your turnover? Where have you heard complaints from your employees within their day-to-day? Like, do they feel that they're supported enough within their role? Somebody who came into this position, how did their career grow from, the same starting point? And that's because you got to protect yourself from companies that will hire you and burn through you. There's great companies out there, but there's plenty of bad ones that will just hire, fire, and not care about you, and you will be a number. So once again, when you have leverage, protecting yourself from a company that is not going to value you.
So on my end, there is a question I always ask, and it's similar to what Steph is saying. I always say to whatever the hiring manager, what keeps you up at night in that team, and how can I help solve this? And second, something I started doing later in my career is asking, how can I be of service? We all trying to get to the next place. What does that look for you? When a CEO, I'm like, how do we get to the next target, the big target? And how can I help to get there, right? So what is it, that biggest pain point that you have? And how can I help solve it? But recently, though, I also started asking, I don't know if this is part of negotiation. I guess to me it is, because it's a make or break, about diversity and inclusion strategy, right? I've been passed on so many opportunities because I asked them threefold. The people that you're serving, does your employee reflect them? The people that are leading those people, do they reflect the pool of employee that you have? And then do you keep that in the sort of decision-making process? You know, this right there can make or break your entering company. And if you can answer those correctly, I can work with you.
Agreed. You guys are, I'm so happy. My heart is very happy right now with all the advice that you're giving. It's very spot on. All right. So the next question is, how should the person negotiating counter, and when is it appropriate to do so?
I think you got you got to look at the company that you're currently with, if it's coming from them, and understanding if one's going to come or not. Like, have they given counter offers to the people that were leaving or got to stay? And understanding why you're looking, like, are you really mad, or is $5,000 going to keep you there because you just found a job paying you $5,000 more? Or is it the fact, like, people are looking passively as candidates more than ever. I fully support that. So, even if it's just like, if you're utilizing your search to get to get a raise, be honest with the people that you're working with as well. Because listen, I'm really looking, I'm interested in this role, but I am happy with where I'm at, compared to I'm miserable, need to get out, or, there's so many different reasons as to why a counter will come about. And knowing if it's about the money, about, it's everything we talked before, like what's important to you and how it all plays out, because people can and should accept offers, and they should also walk away before that can even become an option.
Yeah, I agree. I think as a recruiter, for me, I always try to be very, very transparent with the candidates and tell them, this is the budget, this is what I'm working with, this is the range, and this is the highest I can go. And I will always try to give them the highest at the very beginning. So sometimes there is no wiggle room, right? You also have to understand that some companies, if the company's bigger, like Google, they'll have what's called a salary committee, right? So that recruiter is going to have to keep going back and forth every time you want to negotiate. And I've seen like where candidates will just negotiate to negotiate sometimes. And it's like, if you asked me originally, be very clear on what it is you want. Look, I'm looking for 130. If I'm offering you 200, like clearly the recruiter went into bat for you. So I wouldn't just negotiate. If you're getting exactly what you want and even more, then of course you wouldn't really have to negotiate. That's where you can negotiate other things like coaching, sign-on bonus. But I would just, be very, very clear with your expectation from the very beginning with the recruiter. So they could, and then you can even follow that up with, look, this is what I'm looking for, but what's more important to me is finding the right fit. So I'm flexible, this is what I'm looking for, but more importantly for me is finding the right fit. And then, that gives you negotiating power, because they know like, okay, I'm interviewing them as well. But yeah, so sometimes it's appropriate, sometimes it's not. I would always ask, but again, if you see that the recruiter, you were upfront with the recruiter, you told them this is what I'm looking for, and you're getting way more than you even asked, then that's your time. You don't have to say anything. I don't know if you guys agree with that.
I mean, you brought it up earlier with Instacart. Like, people want what they can't have, like they're willing to pay for it, but then at the same time, once they can't have it, they'll pay double, like, so when you've created a whole new scenario, it doesn't, hey, like I got this, but somebody's offering me this. How I hate to turn you down, but I can't say no to them. And that, is there a counter? And creating that continual conversation instead of saying, oh, I just accepted this position, best of luck, and not even seeing if your favorite opportunity would actually come back and create, more. There's budgets, there's approvals, there's processes, but to end a conversation before asking does you no good.
I'll round this up with this is two school of thoughts, and I agree with both of you. It's like you should always negotiate school, and there is like You know, you do it some, or, you know, don't do it. When it comes to counter, this is the way I see it. I think Eric mentioned something that was very important. And I would relate the story that happens with a friend. UKG, after the split, after the merge, was hemorrhaging talent. And late in the game, they started doing this thing where they said, before you leave, please give us a chance to counter. So one of my buddies, what did he do? The company he's interviewing for is like, give me the biggest offer possible because the company I'm currently working for will counter, right? So they over doubled the salary. And then he went to UKG, it's like, here, can you match this or counter this? They just couldn't, right? They're like, oh, at this rate, we couldn't. But you know, there's a lot that goes on there. Now, earlier, someone mentioned in chat, if you get accepted at your dream company, you did your research, you set a number that you're comfortable with. They give you more than this number. Why are we negotiating? If you're getting everything you want for it, are you negotiating just for the purpose of negotiating? Like, I'm always teaching at Book of Code and mentoring people. Always people say like, oh my God, I could have gotten more. You asked for 70K. They said, yes, here's 70K. It's like, that was so easy. I could have asked for 80. I'm like, no, why didn't you ask for 80 to start with? Or understand that, you know, this is where I want to be and ask for that. There's always like, I could have made more. You could also make less, right? What is it that you're comfortable with? And that's where you go. If that's what's offered, even more, take a win. It's okay to just take it and sort of, you know, be okay with that.
And it's always okay to ask for a raise, like maybe 6 months in or a year in. I've actually seen this where an employee has talked to other team members and have found out what they make, and they've gone back to HR and been like, I mean, I don't know, this can be, you know, it's a little uncomfortable, but they've gone back and asked for more while they're working at the company. So there's always that option as well. So don't think that whatever you negotiated from the beginning, you could, while you're working there, you could ask for more when they see value.
Yeah, businesses are trying to make money, and we are the factor as to how they make that money. So they need, they need to make dollars off of the work that you do. So, yeah, but once again, that was a person that went and stuck up for themselves, had the proper knowledge and was able to apply it and wasn't scared to ask the questions and, say, can you fix this? And like, not everybody's, they're not always trying to take advantage of you, and I think I saw in chat, somebody's like, if there's policies for only 2 weeks, like, and I want 3 weeks vacation, well, you're not going to get it if you don't ask. And if you put that in your objective of your resume and saying like, listen, work-life balance, PTO is a big part of my search, people are reading that right off the bat. And policy, rules, everything are meant to be broken for, like, never is there one off, like there's so many different times where the rules don't apply to what is going on an individual basis, and trying to make it about you as an individual instead of, oh, the company, or the entire workforce. It's about you.
So great. And then rounding out our last question here before we jump into question and answer, when do you think that a job seeker should walk away from the negotiation? And I know, Dari, you touched on this a little bit, with if you have what you have, go for it. But just sometimes you can take it. But is there, I guess, to your all's point about you're also interviewing the company, like, is it when you get red flags? What kind of is your take on that? With when would you say, all right, time for me to walk away?
I'm gonna say go ahead, Steph.
So I was just gonna say, if you're clear from the very beginning, this is what I'm looking for, and you feel like you've presented your value, and and they still come back with a lower, request than what you are saying you want, walk away. Know your worth, know your value. I've seen it so many times where candidates walk away and an hour later, the hiring manager is willing to give them what they want. So walk away, know your worth, know that there are a ton of opportunities. The world is your oyster right now. Yes, the economy is not doing great right now, but remember, now you can work anywhere. Now with remote opportunities, there are global opportunities. There are so many opportunities available now. Walk away. If they're not showing you that they see your worth, walk away, on to the next, go to the competitor.
Well, I mean, like, I see this, it's a chess match, and people see, like when people are applying to jobs, they're feeling all the no's. They don't realize that you're starting the negotiation the second you apply for the job. They're not giving themselves the credit for the no's they're saying when they're not applying for a job. That's a job you just turned down. So like, if you actually focus on how many jobs you haven't applied to and throw that in your no pile, your no pile is far bigger than the amount of companies that have said no to you. So you really have to be comfortable with the fact that not everybody's going to hire you. You've got to be willing to go that extra mile for yourself within this search, applying to 100 jobs if you really need a job, or applying to that specific few, but know that you turn down 1,000 or 100 jobs within your search. And just don't burn bridges. Be honest with why you're walking away. If you're going to miss an interview, hey, I don't want to waste your time or mine. If you don't want to accept the job, hey, thank you for your time, but this is why not. People are afraid to say no in this world now. Like, I can just ghost you. Like, what happens in 10 years that becomes your dream job, but they keep track of people that didn't show up for interviews, and now you're not working there. Somebody changes jobs, and you were supposed to have an interview, and they stayed after work for a 6 o'clock interview. You didn't go, and you just realized you burnt a bridge. Like, being communicative, if you have something come up, people understand that, like, you're trying to be within your day while taking these interviews and everything. You have to own those aspects of your search and walk away at any and all times. If the second your stomach says no, like, it's pretty accurate to be right.
Eric, to your point, this at Tinder, we can't just ghost people.
Yeah, I have been let down too many times by people that I have great relationships with, that it's upsetting to find out that they couldn't just tell me no. And I appreciate the people that tell me no just as much as I appreciate the people that tell me yes.
I love what you just said, Eric. You need to remember that most companies have what we call ATS systems, applicant tracking systems. And once the note, what is it in the recruiting world? The DNH, which is do not hire. You don't want to go into the do not hire pile, right? You don't want somebody to enter a note into the applicant tracking system. And again, years later, there's that role that you really want. But you're in the system as do not hire. You have a red flag on you in the system that lives even after they're gone. You're in that applicant tracking system. So just be open, honest, transparent, be kind in your process. Remember that the recruiters that you're working with, this is their job. This is their performance is being reflected, so when you ghost them, that looks really bad. You're building bridges and you just wasted their time. And that looks bad on them when they're meeting with their managers, they have to explain, that you just ghosted them, and it just looks really bad on them as well. So be as supportive as you can, be kind.
Sometimes walking away from something that you do really want but can't say yes to is great, because if you keep them on the hook, I've had people blacklisted for keeping that a maybe for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, and they're like, I don't want to work with somebody who can't make a decision. And those are the things that like you just want common courtesy on those sides. It should be both ways. I know Nikki will say that companies have been the worst at it. I agree. Like, companies haven't given that back. People are not getting answers on a regular basis, but just because somebody else is doing something wrong doesn't mean that you should do it as well.
And I've had candidates that I've hired 3 years later. They said no 3 years prior, but I kept in touch with them because they were so transparent. They built that relationship. They told me, no, I have to walk away. I'm not getting the salary that I want. And 3 years later, guess what? Now they have more experience. I'm able to offer them more salary. And I remember them because the experience was so great. They were so open and honest. And 3 years later, I have them in my system. I'm able to reach out to them, and they've taken the job 3 years later. So you never know what direction, what you could create. So make sure that, you keep in touch and you can walk away, but do it professionally.
You're building your network, like I've had people that were great off, did have an interview, turned it down. And then a year later, hey, I need a job. It's not I want a job. I need a job. Do you have anything? Well, yeah, you interviewed with them. They wanted you. There's a similar or the same position open again, like, and it's almost a layup. compared to anything else. So yeah, no, I agree with that 100%, Steph.
Wow. Well, I mean, I think to say this has been valuable is an understatement of the century. You all are wonderful. I know that we're right on time, but I do see a question that was asked twice. So I want to see if you guys are flexible with putting this in. But if you all want to, and you've touched on it a little bit, but if anyone has the time to talk about how to negotiate for an existing role. I know you talked about it a little bit beforehand, but if there are any, quick tips there, then I think that would really help this individual out as well.
Can you clarify existing role, meaning they're in the role, or
right, their current job?
Like a bump in salary is what you mean, like an increase?
That's what it seems like to me. If the person asking wants to clarify that as well, just let us know if you want to send me a DM.
Yeah,
There's so many ways. Yeah. I think you can, if you're getting offers from other companies or you're seeing that other companies are offering more, I would go to your direct supervisor and bring that up to them. Say, look, this is what's happening. I have a great network. I'm being offered these roles. I don't want to leave. I love this company. I love the values. I love the culture. But I am being offered this. I mean, it's a risk, right? But you have to be brave, and you have to say, look, this is what the market is. Again, this is a data point that they're going to take, and they're going to go to their boss and say, hey, again, the competitor is offering this. We're going to lose our team. Everybody wants to, they want good retention. They don't want good team members to leave. So if you believe that you're a good team member, that they value you, and you're seeing that the market's paying a lot more, or you could even ask, hey, what responsibilities can I take on? What else? I see, point out different areas in the company that you feel that you can help in, point that out and say, I know that you need this. I would love to manage this project. I'd love to take on more responsibilities. And I'm seeing, that this is what the market's offering. Let's talk about, would you be open to negotiating an increase for me?
One thing I can add to this really quickly, I've been in that position where, especially around time of self-reflection, where I sort of list out things that I've accomplished, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm so underpaid, right? I do so much, and compare myself to my peers. I'm like, what? And I go with data, but like, look, I was able to increase this throughput by X amount of percentage. I was able to make this better by X amount of percentage. I was able to do this. I was able to do that. Given all this, and looking at market rate for people that are doing similar things, I should be on X and Y, X, Y, Z, right? It works sometimes. It didn't work other times. I think it worked less time than it worked less time than I actually wanted. Often I had to sort of move on, and they would counter. But usually when I'm moving to a different company, it's almost close to like doubling whatever I'm making. So it's usually really, really hard, or there's something there. Or I'm going from like 2 weeks vacation to unlimited PTO and paying tuition reimbursement, right? Another thing you can negotiate, pay for me to learn more things, right? And those companies can never match that. So there's always that, right? Maybe you can get the money, but can you send me to conferences? Can you send me to, I don't know, can you pay for college if I'm going to college, or take like a certificate or something?
I'm gonna just jump in real quick. If it's about growing internally, I mean, you go to a management group, you ask them how they did. You don't tell them, hey, I'm looking, or I need more money. You ask them, how did you get here? What did it take for you to get there? When you were growing throughout the company, did you get any raises throughout the process? Like trying to figure out what's going on with inside the company as to how those promotions and how those raises are being given out allows you to leverage why you deserve it. So understanding the internal workings of your company is going to be allowed you to leverage that conversation without even letting them know that that's why you're asking the questions. Like, hey, I need a raise. Like, no, hey, with people being available, like who's growing the fastest in this company? Okay, bam. Then you go talk to them about how they did it and figure out where they'll pay it, compared to being so direct. You can kind of take that around the backdoor information and then apply it to get it for yourself.
So wonderful. That was amazing. And I think that I think that you all proactively answered the questions in the chat. However, if there are lingering questions, I know that everyone has entered their LinkedIn information in the chat. So I'm sure everyone, all the panelists would be very open to, if you want to, continue that conversation, or if you have more questions. I know Steffi mentioned specifically that feel free to DM her, but like I said, I think the biggest thing is thank you so much to the panelists. Your insight has been invaluable, and just reading from the comments, it seems like all the audience agreed as well. So thank you for making that difference and taking the time, and also thank you to all the participants for joining. We do have the upcoming Lunch and Learn is what to expect on the first 90 days of the job. So that is something that you can check out the Eventbrite and go from there. But we thank you so much and hope that you all have a great rest of the day, and also too a good weekend.
Thank you so much. This was so fun. You're all so wise. Keep in touch.
Fantastic.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Good luck, Ashton.
Thank you. Final countdown.
Yay. Keep us posted. Send us pictures.
Will do. Bye, everyone.
Bye, team.